Welcome back. This is Steph from Cold Blooded Freaks, and in today's episode, we are talking about what we will call the dark side of reptile keeping. So, this is not just going over bad parts about owning ball pythons. This is some unfortunate things that you can run into being a reptile keeper in general. We will go over some of these bad experiences, not to roast anybody, but just to hope and help the next person so they don't run into the same problems that we did. First, we're starting off with a very unfortunate situation that happened to me when I was first getting into the ball python game, if you will. I fell in love with pied ball pythons. As you guys know, that's one of my weaknesses. And I saw these beautiful pied ball pythons that were for sale. And back when I was looking for ball pythons availability, really the only website we had was Kinksnake. So you would go onto these other website platforms and you would try to see if you can buy from them. And sometimes they were from different countries, so you had to kind of be careful in that regard. But I ended up trying to buy these two female pied ball pythons that were very pricey for that part of those days, if you will. And I noticed that there was some weird interactions happening early on. And the communication got a little weird when payment was talked about, because they said that they were shipping them from overseas. And when I questioned the overseas information, they said that you are going to have to Western Union the money. That is a red flag right off the bat. I have learned in my older years now that if anybody is asking for you to send them a money order or Western Union money, don't do it. People scam people out of puppies, kittens, and everything under the sun with Western Union. And they scammed me out of thousands of dollars, and they were from Africa, and there was nothing I could do. This money went straight to Africa, and I was never able to see it ever again. There was nothing any of the law systems here could do to get you that money back, and it was gone. And I never got those pied females, and they ripped me apart in emails telling me that I was an evil person and all this stuff, and it was super dramatic. I just hope no one ever has to do that again with ball pythons, because there's so many better platforms like Morphmarket now, and just even social media itself. There's so many safer options. If you can buy from someone that you can directly talk to, that doesn't seem sketchy. If you have a bad feeling, there's probably a good reason. So listen to your gut is what I'm going with this, and never take something that you have to Western Union money to. This next one is about Yucatan spiny-tailed iguanas that I tried to purchase. This was probably about 8 years ago now, I would say. So I tried to buy these Yucatan spiny-tailed iguanas. And I believe this is the only name I'll be dropping at this point because it was not their fault. I was trying to buy from Outback Reptiles. But I noticed that the logo looked different than I've ever seen on Outback Reptiles. So I should have been smart enough, but I was stupid and young, and I really wanted these things, and they were the only people that had them available. And again, extremely pricey animals because they were so rare. And they did send me these animals. As soon as I opened the box, I inspected the animals to make sure they were healthy, and they were not. They were very ill, very emaciated, super dehydrated. There was no heat in the box. They were barely even packaged correctly. They were just in really bad shape. I reached right back out to the company that I bought them from, who I thought was Outback Reptiles. And the email that they had sent me right to actual Outback Reptiles. Outback said they had no history of me buying these and that they don't even have them available. So I was like, what is going on? So I reached back out to the person that I was directly talking to, which was interesting because when I messaged that website, it sent me to someone else's number who reached out to me about the animals. And he asked me to send him money to this one account. So I did. And I reached back out to him about getting my money back. And I never did because he blamed me for not reaching out fast enough and all this stuff. And there was no way that I did anything wrong besides trying to make sure these animals are healthy and got the emergency care that they needed. I took them directly to a vet, trying to get them nutrients into their system to save their lives, but they were unfortunately too far gone. And I did lose both of them. And the whole situation was just very negative. I applaud Outback Reptiles for being very kind and very nice to me, and they felt terrible for the situation that happened. But unfortunately, this fake site, to my knowledge, is still up. They may actually have animals, but if you look into it, they're not healthy animals. So just be careful with the sites that you do go to. Make sure when you're reaching out to somebody that you're actually reaching out to somebody that does indeed work for that company. If it reroutes you to some random number, probably not a good sign. That's what I learned from that. You need to be talking to somebody that either has the title of the company in their name or is indeed the owner of that site. It's just things that I didn't pay attention to because I just really wanted these animals. Don't let your want and love for an animal basically rip money from your hands, because that's what will happen. So the rule of thumb for this one is make sure you're buying from reputable breeders, people that have very good reviews and a history of purchases and, all transactions going well. And just make sure the place is legit. Look up online. You can look up a company's name online to see if it is indeed reputable. I think the Better Business Bureau actually has a whole list of companies that aren't legit or anything like that that you can look up. You can look up a lot online. It's at your fingertips constantly. Just do your research before you make an assumption on any other company. But sometimes there are people out there that like to scam people out of money, unfortunately. So we're going to take you to a little bit of a story that happened years ago at this point. But this was very interesting because this was pretty well documented and it was a very good scam. If you really think about it, but it's evil, but still very well executed, if you will. There was a guy that was posting pictures of a newly hatched out clutch of albinos, and in that clutch was this very, very red looking albino, and it even shared the same shininess of a brand new baby out of the egg. All of it was pretty spot on. To me, when I'm looking back at it now, I'm like, yeah, that does look photoshopped or something, strange going on. But this guy was selling the rest of that clutch as hets for this red albino. And he did it for, I think, 2 years or so. And he disappeared, and all those people lost all kinds of money because people were like, oh my God, this is like a new crazy albino. This is so cool. And it must be a new gene. And it was just fake. And someone used Photoshop very well, or even dyed the animal. I'm not really sure. But the guy disappeared, took everybody's money that bought from him and just disappeared. So there's also people out there, be careful. This is why it's important to watermark your pictures in a way that someone can't take it, because I've actually had some of my pictures and I've seen other people's, other breeders that I've known through the years, their animals up for sale while they still have the animal up for sale on someone else's page. That's evil as well. That's not nice. But it does happen. I have had people say, is this your animal? I'm talking to somebody, but it looks like the animal that was on your page. Is it yours, or is this person scamming, or are you scamming? I got accused of scamming and it was my own picture. So that was frustrating, but that person obviously didn't get the sale. But just keep that in mind, that your pictures are, these animals, as horrible as it is to say, they are your property. You own these animals. And if someone is using pictures that you have taken of your animals to make money, I think that's just completely evil, to be honest. It's just money hungry people that are like just jerks. I don't like people like that, but don't let that happen to you. We're moving on to our next topic. So this one is a little bit harder, and I feel like there is certainly more room for error on this one, and that is missex identification. we are all humans and mistakes are made. Mislabeling is certainly made. Not super often, but it does happen. And sometimes I feel like if you aren't as experienced in sexing animals, it can be happen more often to you. I also feel that if you have other types of exotics, some of them are almost impossible to figure out the sex, so there's probably more likely of this happening with other types of exotics. But we've actually had 2 animals through the years of owning ball pythons that we have purchased as one sex and them actually being a different sex. And this is one of them. This is a firefly, possible leopard. Doesn't look leopard to me, but possible leopard hat clown. And we bought her as a her, and she is a he. So there is some behavioral things that you notice about males and females, at least I do, especially weight and size and length and growth rate, and sometimes even feeding behaviors that I notice with males and females that kind of gave us red flags on this guy. But he is a he and not a she, but I still call her beautiful because I love her, and she's not a her, but I want her to be a her. But things like this do happen. We actually have another female that was sold to us as a male. So this was a long time ago. It was a Suma het pied that I got from this wonderful lady. She said that she had the snake for about 1.5 years before I got him. And she was like, oh, he's a boy. He was sold to me from this breeder, said he was a boy. And that he was a Suma. We're not really sure about the het pied, but possibly het pied. So I noticed that once he got up to breeding size for a male, that he wasn't locking. So I knew that was not good. So I was like, well, that's kind of strange. And then I put another male in with that pair. Sometimes putting another male in with your pairing groups kind of stimulates the males to kind of get more feisty and end up locking with your female. But that male locked with my Suma het pied that I thought was a male. So I immediately said to myself, well, I guess he's a she. And she's currently very pregnant right now, so she is definitely a she, and she is indeed 100% het pied because she has made some beautiful babies for us. And it's just funny. Again, not roasting anybody at all, but it's just something to be aware of. One of the things I've learned from both of these experiences, when you get your animals, pop them. Make sure they are what you purchased. This way, if there is a problem, you can get it fixed immediately. It is something that I will blame myself for because at the time when I got the Suma, I wasn't exactly the most experienced in popping or probing an animal. I wasn't experienced in popping or probing, especially close to adult animals. I just didn't have that skill. So now anytime I buy an animal, I'm immediately comes out. I set it up for the first 24 hours, let it just relax from its stressful journey. And then I will go in the next day and make sure it is indeed a male or a female, depending on what I purchased, and just to confirm that that is correct. And it's not the lack of trust in people. It's just that you spend time and money and energy into these wonderful animals, and they are, at the end of the day, if you're in this for a hobby or you're in this for just a business, you want to make sure that your investment is invested in the proper snake or animal that you purchased. So something very valuable is to definitely check the sex of your animal once it arrives. So the next one that we're moving on to is we have 2 situations at very different times. So many years ago, when I was still very early into the ball python game, I had a snake friend of mine that we would meet up and we would kind of, sell snakes back and forth with each other. And I purchased 2 albinos that were, the male was a possible het pied and the female was a 100% het pied. So I ended up keeping the female and keeping her for years and years. and I sold the male, I think, the following year. The female, being 100% het pied, I was breeding to a black pastel het pied, and then I was breeding her to a black pastel pied. Because I was trying to go for albino pandas in the future. That was my goal, but year after year, she produced me albinos or double hets, or, I was not getting pieds, and I was super confused. And, I reached out to him about my concern, but, I also was like, there's no way she's not het pied. It ended up, thanks to RGI, I did send out her test. This is years later. Send out her shed test, and ended up that she was not het pied. So that was very sad, but the most important thing that a breeder can do, and this is exactly what this breeder did, and it's great because this is exactly how it should be handled, is they made it right. You evaluate the situation that happened. Mistakes happen. We're not perfect. Misidentifications happen all the time. And not to mention, if you paired one male and you don't know if it locked because you never saw a lock, but then you paired that female to another male and you saw that lock, but she actually took from the other male, you might not actually know that, and then you might be selling babies that aren't exactly what you're saying they are. But he handled it perfectly. We were able to get everything situated. He ended up giving me another snake, and that's the way it's supposed to be. As long as you make it right at the end of the day, I think that is the most honorable thing that you can do. The next situation that we had is that we bought this beautiful clown yellow belly red stripe. And we RGI tested her. She looks red stripe to me, honestly. So I could see where the breeder may have not gotten it right, because to me it still looks red stripe. And there are people that say that it's possible that the genetic testing isn't 100% yet, because there could be different lines of different genetics and stuff like that, which I totally believe. But it ended up coming up negative for red stripe. So that was a big project that we had. This female has some weight on her now. She's growing. And, it puts a kind of wrench into our breeding plans with her. But again, the breeder is fantastic. We've been going back and forth about, how are we going to fix this problem? How are we going to resolve it? Whatever we have to do. We love the animal. We think she's beautiful, but we just need to know for the future, because we invested this money into her being that she's red stripe. We just got to figure it out and go from there. But this breeder, like I said, is being fantastic about the whole thing. So that is our next steps with that one, but we don't have a resolution for it yet, but we're working on it. So the moral of this episode is not to bash anybody, but it is to make sure you do your due diligence, make sure you do research on the people that you're buying from, and sometimes returning to a breeder that you purchased from prior to is your safest bet. And obviously going on very trusted websites is also very important. In the comments below, don't drop any names, but keep it nice. Let us know if you guys have experienced anything similar to this, or any of my stories that you share the same kind of interest or same kind of bad result in. Just let us know. I'm interested to see if anybody else has experienced this and how often it is happening in the reptile industry. And I would love to hear your story. Also, if you're interested in a Firefly Het Clown male, they'll give you a great discount on this beautiful guy, and he's super friendly and very beautiful, and he doesn't fit into our breeding plans anymore because he is not a she. But let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.